Hi everyone, it's Chelsea Pottinger here, and I'm thrilled to be your host for the second episode of Cuppa for a Cause, a special series from Cuppa that shines a light on meaningful charities nominated by our Cuppa collective members. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people joining us today. Each quarter, one of these nominated charities is randomly selected, and Cuppa donates a portion of our thought leader memberships to support the incredible work they're doing in the community. This quarter, our chosen charity is the Gidget Foundation Australia, an organisation very, very close to my heart that supports the emotional wellbeing of expectant and new parents. Joining me today is a dear friend of mine and an absolute rock star of a human. Her name, Arabella Gibson. She is the CEO of the Gidget Foundation, to share more about their mission, their impact, and how together we can better support parents navigating early parenthood. Welcome, Arabella.
Thanks, Chels.
So good to see you.
Oh, you too. Look at those smiles on our faces.
So I thought we'd kick off, Bella, like just at the beginning, like for those people who are listening right now who might not be familiar, what is the Gidget Foundation Australia and what inspired its creation?
Yeah, so look, the Gidget Foundation began 25 years ago through great tragedy. A beautiful girl whose nickname was Gidget. Her real name was Louise. She sadly lost her struggle with postnatal depression and anxiety. She was named Gidget actually because she looked like Sally Field from the 60s sitcom by the same name of Gidget. And Louise was this amazing woman. She was vibrant. She was full of life. She was the kind of person that she wore, red shoes and a red wedding dress on her wedding day. She just had so much effervescence about her, and she had really longed for a baby. And she and her husband Dave had gone through their own kind of fertility struggles, and they'd landed with finding out they were pregnant with their beautiful little girl. And it was the secret that, of course, she couldn't keep. She just had to tell everyone because she was so, so excited about this new little bub entering their family unit and their world. And about 9 months into having Jazz, Gidget was really suffering. She was suffering from postnatal depression, which she was, from all kind of accounts, very much kind of in denial around, her feelings and the shame that comes with that and the stigma that comes with that. Because, of course, having a baby is meant to be this most joyful and exciting and wonderful time. And to kind of share that maybe it wasn't that for you at that point in time was something that she really didn't feel she could share easily. And so what happened was that she did seek out some support from a GP, but that support was in the way of medicine only. There was no kind of talking therapy and no kind of, skills or coping mechanisms around what it was she was feeling and thinking. And sadly, she did just a few days after that visit take her own life. And that set in motion really an incredible legacy to her. 25 years later, we find ourselves with an organisation that was originally set up by her two sisters and her great friends. They came together. They sat around the kitchen table, and in amongst their grief with a cheese board and a glass of wine, they decided they would start the Gidget Foundation. And Gidget had come from this incredibly loving family. She had a beautiful husband. She had this gorgeous daughter, and no one could understand how this could happen to someone like her. And so they decided that they wanted to make sure that this didn't happen to anyone else, and that this illness was something that people did become aware of, and that there was education and an understanding of what postnatal depression was and how it can really, affect people. And so they started the Gidget Foundation with a view that they would drive education and awareness. And here we are 25 years later as really the largest supplier of perinatal mental health clinical services right across the country in every state and territory. So it is a bittersweet legacy, but really an incredible reflection on her life and what her life meant.
That's so true. And congratulations on everything that you've done. And obviously I can relate very much to her story. And that's why the Gidget Foundation is very, very close to my heart. Sometimes it's the ones that we would least expect to ever go through something like that, who then suffer really severely. And so it's been so beautiful to watch the Gidget Foundation just reach so many people and so many homes. And I wanted to ask you, what actually inspired you to join and lead the Gidget Foundation Australia in such an incredible way?
Oh, look, I knew Gidget. I was very close to one of her sisters, just in terms of, social interaction, friendship, that sort of thing. And so I went to Gidget's funeral, and I remember really just looking around and thinking to myself, it was just such a dark hole of grief that everybody was thinking, feeling and experiencing. And I remember just thinking, how is this even possible that this could happen? And so many, many years later, I had been living in London with my husband and my 2 children, twins. They were 3 at the time, and we decided to move back to Australia. And during that period, I had a big career in the corporate world and in small business, and I had, all these business skills. And I came back to Australia, and I thought, I'd really like to use all those skills for good, and see if there was something that I could do that would make a difference. And I think having a young family, for me, the idea of school hours and maybe a short week of 3 days a week would be perfect. And then lo and behold, the Gidget Foundation was looking for a CEO, and I'd actually never prepared a resume before, because every job I'd gone to, I'd kind of, just gone from one to the next in terms of connections and networks. And so I prepared my CV, and I went through probably 4 rounds of interviews, which is the most rounds of interviews I'd ever been through. And I thought, this is perfect. It's 3 days a week. It's 9 till 3. Well, I got the job, and I have never worked harder, longer hours, or for less money in my life. But I am passionate about it, and the work that we're doing and the sense of personal achievement that I receive from the work is really special. So yeah, that's probably what inspired me to do it. And also the fact that, living in London, having twins, I could really understand that isolation, and I didn't have family around me. I didn't have any friends that had children, and I was very, very lonely. And whilst I was never diagnosed with any kind of perinatal mental ill health, I look back now and I think there were probably times when I probably should have reached out for support myself. So for me, it's a cause very close to my heart.
It's beautiful. She's going to be looking down from the stars in heaven, just so genuinely grateful, I think, to what you as a good friend and the family and what everyone's done here. So no one ever ends up, where she ended up. And it's a really interesting thing with parenting, because you see it on the magazine, happy mum, happy baby, they're all smiling, and it's a newborn. And that was just not my experience at all, no makeup on, hat ball, gin, Clara in a football hold, thinking, what have I done? And I was like, Gidget, I wanted a baby for so long. And I think it's this, parenthood can be such a mix of just extreme joy and then also like challenge sometimes. And so I was going to ask for your insights around, what are some of the emotional struggles that parents commonly face when they do have a baby or when they're expecting a baby?
Yeah, look, I think to your point, it's a complete identity adjustment. You've gone from being, potentially, a family unit where you had freedom, you could do what you wanted when you wanted, your routine was never impacted, you had control over your life and where you were going and when you were going and what you were doing. You had a sense of achievement at work, maybe. You had financial stability because there was just you and your partner, or just you, or whatever it might have been, to look after. And I think there's an innate shift that all of a sudden you are responsible for another human being. And that in itself, I think, can be really quite confronting. And I think the weight, I just remember personally the weight on my shoulders of feeling like life had just changed so significantly, and we were everything is so focused on getting to that point of labor, but there's very little kind of consideration for, well, what happens when I bring this baby, or in my case babies, home, and how am I going to manage, and what am I going to feel? And it's kind of like the untold piece of having a baby that, this amazing bonding and joy and fabulousness actually can be incredibly challenging. And so we know that parents can experience all sorts of symptoms. The first 2 weeks after having a baby for mum and dad are a time of really settling, and we know that that can bring along the baby blues. And particularly with mum, there's the hormonal changes. And so while those kind of start to settle, we know that people will feel out of sorts. We do say that if people are feeling out of sorts and certainly not themselves, longer than, say, a 2-week plus period, it's probably time to start thinking about what it is that they might be feeling, maybe sharing that with their family, with their partner, with their friends, and kind of considering, is what they're experiencing a normal experience, or is it something maybe a little more, out of the norm? And some of those symptoms might include things like things that they used to really enjoy doing. If they were to do them now, they just don't find the joy in them. They might have real challenges around, concentration or making any kind of decisions. We often see a lot of irritability, so really kind of, anger outbursts. Often it can result in rage as well. Physical symptoms, so things like, nausea, heart palpitations, headaches, sweaty hands, shortness of breath. Often we see sleep changes, appetite changes. Quite often insomnia can be a real piece there when, we're told that when babies are to sleep. And sometimes, people can find that that's a piece that really sets them on the path of perinatal mental ill health, is that insomnia. All sorts of things, feeling hopeless and helpless, feeling just constantly tearful, having no energy whatsoever even after you've slept. Negative thoughts just kind of racing through your brain, rumination, all of those sorts of things are things that we know people, can experience.
And, you're just saying that list, I'm sitting here thinking, tick, tick, tick. My experience, but because I wasn't aware of who the Gidget Foundation was when I was going through my journey, I just thought I was going at it alone. I thought, wow, am I the only one that feels like this, right?
Yeah.
And that whole sense of burdensome and that insomnia was so severe and super vigilant to sound. Like I couldn't, I feel like there's a truck in my bedroom window. And so everything became very heightened, very irritable. I'd cry every day.
Yeah.
And so just us having this conversation, the awareness, the incredible work that Gidget does do, how does Gidget provide that practical and emotional support for parents in need?
Yeah. Look, we've got lots and lots of things that we can offer and support people with. I would recommend probably the first place to start is our website. We've got literally hundreds of fact sheets available there that go through everything from how to support dad, how to be a grandparent, for example, supporting a person with perinatal mental ill health, what the symptoms are, how to reach out for help. There's a lot of resources available there with some fantastic information written by clinicians. There's also a couple of videos there that we've got recorded around perinatal mental ill health in dads and partners as well as in mums. So there's 2 different kind of opportunities there to kind of download that information and see that live. But realistically, the main piece of work that we do is called our Gidget House model of care. And that is whereby we offer a minimum of 10 psychological counselling sessions with a perinatal mental health specialist. And we offer that right across the nation. We've got 39 Gidget houses delivering those services, but also through our telehealth service, which is called Start Talking. And it offers exactly the same service. So it's up to 10 free clinical sessions with a perinatal mental health specialist. And then we have a compassionate fund, being a charitable organisation, whereby if someone needs more than, say, the 10 sessions, we actually will fund the additional sessions as well. So to access that service, the Gidget House program, you do need a GP referral and a mental health treatment plan. So seeking out support with your GP is probably that next step after you've shared with your family and friends how you're feeling. And then the GP will run something called an EPDS, and that's like an assessment which kind of talks to how you're feeling in terms of your emotional well-being. And that will then provide a little score, and then that score will determine, what kind of support would be the best for you. At that point, if you are diagnosed with perinatal mental ill health, then the GP will arrange a referral through to either a private psychologist, for example, or to an organisation like us, being at the Gidget Foundation. And then it's a matter of, getting on the phone, sending in your paperwork. We do have a wait list, sadly. There is so much demand in Australia for our services. So there's 1 in 5 new mums and 1 in 10 new dads are diagnosed with this illness. So that's 100,000 people every single year. So there is a little bit of a wait list, but what we do is we go through a triage process with you. And from there, we match you with the right clinician based on what experience you might be having. So, for example, we look after people from kind of all facets of the perinatal period. And I should say that the perinatal period goes from conception through to 1 year postpartum. So, for example, you might have infertility issues, you might have had miscarriages, there might be grief and loss around stillbirth. There might be, of course, a live birth and the experience of postnatal depression and anxiety. There might be postnatal psychosis, in which case quite often people will go into a mother and baby unit to get support there, and then upon discharge start with our services as kind of, continuation of support. So there's really a lot of aspects that we look after and support. So we match you with that clinician, and then from there the sessions start. And they're usually, the first 3 are pretty quick in succession, and then they'll space out to more like monthly, depending on need, throughout that year. So
it's honestly like what you offer is just so incredible and so important. Even people will say to me, how about if I get it? Or what to look out for with my partner? And I'm like, you can never be more proactive in this space. Like, get to the Gidget Foundation, get on their website, look out for the signs and symptoms just to get prepared. You may never end up with peri or postnatal mental ill health. However, it's just so great to get educated so you can kind of spot the signs and symptoms earlier in the piece. And so I think your resources are so awesome that you have on the website. The fact that you offer 10 free psychology appointments is outstanding. I just think that's absolutely incredible. Like, the impact, I feel like it's growing. When I first met you, Bella, 9.5 years ago, and 1 Gidget house, right, in North Sydney, and then your reach, like, it just continues to grow and grow and grow. And this year, the government's given us as the Gidget Foundation Australia more funding. And so I wanted to take a moment here to say, well done, congratulations. It's absolutely just outstanding. And could you talk about that? Could you talk about the funding? Can you talk about the goal of how many houses from 1 to like where we're at right now with Gidget houses?
Yeah, so I think, look, it's been an amazing journey. You're right. We started with the 1 Gidget house in North Sydney. We then doubled that in size. We went from 2 rooms to 4 rooms. We took over the building. And then we thought, okay, what does an expansion plan look like? And we worked really hard with the New South Wales State Government in the first instance to secure some ongoing and sustainable funding to deliver more Gidget houses. We partnered with Tresillian. We now have 50% of our New South Wales Gidget houses are in regional areas, which I think is something personally I feel really passionate about, is making sure that we have these services in regional communities. And from there, we then, started working really closely with the Commonwealth Government. We further developed our telehealth program, and then, of course, the expansion through to where we are now with 39 Gidget houses. And we have plans in place to hit 50 next year. So it's been an incredible ride so far, but there's so much more to do, and really being in every state and territory is critical to make sure that we can address the needs. We've done a needs analysis, and with 100,000 Australians every year being diagnosed, and that's just the ones that are diagnosed, of course, there's so many people that go undiagnosed. The reality is that we're currently only servicing 5% of that diagnosed population. So there's a huge way to go. And really, for me, strategically, what I see is that I would like to put in motion that the next 25 years of Gidget really transform the face of perinatal mental health for the next generation. So my personal driver, I have two 14-year-olds now. I want to know that when they go on to have children, one's a boy and one's a girl, so one will be a dad and one will be a mum, that they have the tools and that they also have the understanding of their partner and what they might be going through as well. And so that's a real driver for me. Is the next 25 years we have an opportunity to have families thrive. We have an opportunity to reduce intergenerational impact. I would like to see perinatal depression and anxiety in the largesse form eradicated. That would be a dream. Imagine if we had that village of support around our communities, that, we had families just thriving. It'd be pretty special.
That'd be very special. What a beautiful mission and goal that is. I think about that with Clara as well, who's turning 11. I think that's just absolutely amazing. You're mentioning about the wait list. It's still like it's a concern, right? Like we're 100,000 people every year. That's the people that come forward. What is the biggest challenge that you think that's facing the Gidget Foundation, like delivering, getting that goal of 50 Gidget houses and also trying to reach as many Australians as we can? Like, what's the challenges, do you think? Is it purely financial? Is it still the awareness piece?
I think it's threefold. I think probably the challenge that we need to fix first, and one which we have a really innovative solution for, is the workforce. There is a lack of mental health professionals right across the country, and there's a lack of perinatal mental health professionals as part of that in terms of their specialisation. So we've developed a workforce program whereby we worked with Federation University to develop the first ever graduate diploma in perinatal mental health. So allied health professionals can now go and do a graduate diploma and specialise in this space, and we provide scholarships to a number of people right across the country. It is an expression of interest program, so we do very much go through an interview process. Those people then, once they're successful, they can go on to do the graduate diploma. They also get a job with us, and we give them, we include within that whole program free supervision. Normally psychologists and allied health have to pay for their supervision, so we provide that free of charge. We also provide a whole lot of workshop training, conference development opportunities as well. And so we've now, since starting that program, we piloted it with the first, I think it was maybe 9 clinicians. We've now gone on to graduate in the last 18 months, 60 clinicians into the workforce, and next year we'll graduate about another 100. So in terms of that, really breaking that barrier down, we have a great pathway with that. We're currently developing, scholarship programs for supervisors so that we can grow the supervisory network. We're developing a program for provisional psychologists, which are graduates that come out of, finishing their university degree, but then they need to get the experience. And that's a very hard piece of the puzzle, because not many organisations are willing to take provisional psychologists on because of the risks involved. So we're working on a program around that so that we can innovate there as well. So from my perspective, going, okay, how do we fix the workforce for 25 years? That's number one barrier. Number two barrier, of course, is funding, and going, okay, what does that visionary approach actually really look like? How are we going to go and seek out the kind of funding that we need to deliver the volume of Gidget houses that are required based on our needs analysis across the country? And to me, I think that's a mix of private philanthropy and government matching. That's my aim. I'm planning to do. And then the third piece is awareness, and awareness of both the issue, but also awareness of the support services that Gidget offer, or the Gidget Foundation generally, because at the moment, we are very well known in certain areas, but not as well known as I'd like nationally. So they're the three things I need to fix.
Yes, and your dog is supporting us with those 3 things. They're like, yes, Bella.
I do apologise for that. She's decided that now is a good time to give me a good old bark. I have got the door shut, but she's
She's very excited. She's very excited about what we need to do as the Gidget Foundation Australia. I didn't even know that you're doing diplomas for, I mean, you just keep amazing me, the Gidget Foundation Australia. So maybe let's talk about the second one around the donations and, how does a donation like big or small help make a difference to families on the ground?
So look, donations, big or small, are absolutely brilliant because, for example, every $3,000 that we secure is an entire family's support for a year. So that in itself is very special. So even if we got, a number of, $100 donations and they add up to that $3,000, we can support a whole family. So realistically, we do work really hard at getting fundraising support right across the board and diversifying those funding streams as well, because whilst it's great to have government on board, or it's great to have, a wonderful grant here from a philanthropic organisation there, it's that combination of grassroots. We began as a volunteer organisation. We began with people, saying, I want to make a difference. And that's a really important part of who we are at the foundation. It's very much part of our special sauce, is really harnessing those people at that grassroots level who might want to go and do, a run for Gidget or a hike for Gidget, or raise money through a morning tea or an afternoon tea, or through a work program, in their offices, or who might want to develop some kind of corporate partnership with us that drives funding. So there's definitely lots of ways that we really look to work with people, because it's not just about the money, it's about the reach, and it's about really getting that harnessing those grassroots to really drive that awareness, that education. And the more people feel like they're really part of what you're doing and they're part of that, I always call it the perfect puzzle, right? Because I've got this incredible team of people, but actually if one of the pieces is missing or isn't quite right, the puzzle doesn't work. But I feel like we work so hard to have this perfect puzzle, and every piece matters, and every piece is a person, and they all really, really significantly contribute. And when I talk to the puzzle, I'm talking about not just the people in my immediate team. I'm talking about all the volunteers that we have from, our founders, our board, but the people who turn up at our lunches and do, sell raffle tickets, to the people who do gardening at our Gidget houses. There's so many ways to be involved. So
good. So the people that are watching today, to support or get involved with the Gidget Foundation Australia, what's the best way for them to get behind Gidget Foundation?
Look, I think if they're interested in volunteering, they can jump on our website, and there's a kind of online form, if you like, that you can fill out there and get involved from a volunteering perspective. As I said, there's so many different ways that you can get involved from a volunteering perspective. Also, from a fundraising perspective, we run a range of different kind of fundraising activities throughout the year. Everything from, we have our Bun in the Oven program, which runs around Perinatal Mental Health Week. We also have our Get Active for Gidget campaign, which is really picking any kind of activity. It might be me choosing to do, 20,000 steps, and I can do that of my own accord. I don't have to do it as part of a marathon or a this or a that. It can be something that works for you. And then you can fundraise through that. We've got a dedicated website that drives that fundraising piece as well. Also, people who might have had an experience with perinatal depression and anxiety, much like, what you do with us, Chelsea. You're an incredible advocate, an incredible ambassador for the Gidget Foundation, and you share your story bravely to help others. And I think that in itself is an incredible way of getting involved, because that storytelling piece, that really kind of sharing what this has meant to you and how you've come through it, is so powerful for others to hear. And so there's also our Gidget Angel program, where people do share their stories and then record videos with us that we then, utilize to share widely what others are experiencing, to normalise it for some people, so that they feel they can reach out and seek the support that they need.
Yeah, that's so true. And if you haven't been to a Gidget lunch yet, I highly encourage that you check that out, because they are an outstanding day and there's so much fun. And thank you, Bella, for saying that, because, it also makes my story and my message worth going through that particular trauma, that I can help one person not experience what I went through. And so I think that's my mission every day as well, is just to make sure that people feel less alone. And So thank you so much for joining me today and for sharing the inspiring work of the Gidget Foundation Australia. I'm so proud of you, of the entire team, everything that you do. I'm really proud also to share that this quarter Cuppa will be donating $1,860, which is a portion of the Thought Leader memberships. So on behalf of the Cuppa collective thought leaders, to help the Gidget Foundation continue it's really life-changing work, to be honest. And also, we are going to donate $5 of our very beautiful brand new leather-bound journals that we've even got it now on the belly band. That $5 purchase of this beautiful journal that we'll be selling goes to Gidget Foundation, because what you do obviously means so much to us as well at EQ Minds. And so together, we're not only having a meaningful conversation, we're taking action to make a real difference. And thank you to everyone who turned up today. Thank you for tuning in as well to Cuppa for a Cause. I can't wait to see which charity we'll be supporting next quarter. Until then, take care, keep spreading kindness, get behind the Gidget Foundation Australia, go check them out. In my mind, they're the best charity in Australia. So thank you so much, Bella, for joining me today.
Thanks so much, Chelsea, and thanks for all your efforts as well, driving that, education, awareness, advocacy, support. I mean, you get behind us constantly, and I think we have to finish like this, don't we?
Always, always. I love you, babe. Thank you so much.
At every event, you finish it with, hundreds of people usually. So the least I can do is just one person today.
Oh, beautiful. That's all that counts. Just one person every day. Thank you.